I didn't say that
I know you didn't.
I said he has extra time.
Well, I won't use it.
Say your name.
Good morning. Thanks. My name is Brent Carlton. I'm the president and co-founder of Commonwealth Second Amendment, which is a Massachusetts gun rights group focused on litigation. We have a very effective state organization that does lobbying and scored a great victory last year. We work very much on the litigation side, and personally, I think that's a lot more fun. I want to return to something that Stephen said earlier, because it really resonated with me. One of the areas where I think we've traditionally lost out to the Brady campaigns and the Bloombergs of the world is in controlling the narrative. Words matter greatly. And Stephen struck a nerve when he brought up this term legal gun owner or lawful gun owner. What's the opposite of that? Criminal. What's the matter with you? Criminal. And they're trying to recast that to create doubt about gun owners. And they've done this very successfully. And we've seen this with terms like assault weapons and all of that kind of stuff. And it's a particularly raw subject for me just because in the last week, my wife and I and every other person in the city of Boston that has a gun license, including some in South Carolina who still have their Boston license, apparently, received a letter from the Boston Police Commissioner and the Mayor of Boston addressed to legal gun owner, asking for our help in helping to combat gun violence in Boston, which, by the way, isn't all that significant anyway. Telling us, reminding us that we had to properly transfer our firearms and that we could turn them in for $200 if we wanted. Well, might find a $50 deal out there. They can turn something and make some money. But the point is, the narrative is all wrong, and they're addressing the wrong people. And I just got a hair across my you-know-what after reading that, and Stephen kind of brought that back like a PTSD flashback for me. So anyway, I'll continue on a little bit here. Massachusetts, is a state with a shot heard around the world, right? And we're famous for that, but you'd think that after all this time, our legislature and our judiciary kind of wishes that was the last shot ever heard in Massachusetts. Sometimes I swear that they're closet Tories. That's what I think it's come down to. We were very fortunate last summer in that our legislature, led by our Speaker of the House, tried to ram through a series of actually an omnibus kind of gun control bill that would have made our regulatory scheme as draconian as what we see in states like New York and Maryland. That was effectively fought back, causing great headaches for the Speaker. And now we've taken that off the table, and our regulatory scheme is merely just Kafkaesque, I could say. That's probably the best way to describe it. Or as we like to say, at least we're not New Jersey or Maryland or New York, which is not something to brag about, but So where does that leave us in Massachusetts? Right now, we really have nothing serious in the legislature on either side. The legislature got so badly burned by their phones ringing off the hook that they do not ever want to consider another gun control bill, in my view. I think some of them still probably have nightmares of telephones that will not stop ringing. So that leaves us at a place where litigation is really the only way forward in terms of moving the needle back in our direction. And that's where Commonwealth Second Amendment comes in, and we've been quite effective. Just in the last few weeks, we've scored 2 federal court victories, and we've had 2 cases start up in the First Circuit Court of Appeals. In one case, it's actually the second time we brought this case, we challenged the state's prohibition on anyone with an out-of-state conviction for simple possession of marijuana. Now, this only applies to people with out-of-state convictions, and remind you, we're not talking about a license to carry. Well, we are talking about a license to carry, but that's a license you need to own a gun. So the very fundamental enumerated right that was affirmed by Heller and McDonald was denied to this small group of people. We won that case 2 years ago. We won it because the Attorney General conceded the case and agreed that we were right. And by the way, that doesn't happen a whole lot that the Attorney General agrees with us. But what happened is the Office of Public Safety said, you know what, we're not going to recognize this. We'll give those 2 people their license, but we're still going to start to keep denying people. So what do you think we did again? We sued them, yeah. And we won. Because the Attorney General said, and actually the Assistant Attorney General told me this about 2 years ago, I don't want to relitigate a case I conceded. And so they didn't oppose it. And so what's going to happen is we're going to collect another fat legal fee from the state. And I told you this is fun, right? This is more fun than talking to legislatures, guys, I'll just tell you. And we are prepared to keep doing this until the police departments and the Office of Public Safety realizes that the federal courts and Commonwealth Second Amendment are not going to go away. The other case we won, we sued a town because they were giving people, they had a backlog of over a year before they would allow people to come in and apply for a license just to possess a firearm. Can you imagine not being able to register to vote for over a year? Yeah. They didn't even bother answering the complaint, and we essentially got a default order against them. And that serves as a warning to all the other 350 police departments in Massachusetts that issue licenses that allow you to even possess a firearm. Now, what I'll say is, by default, that's a license to carry. So, like, we make it hard to own a gun, but once you do it, you can carry it for the most part, 90% of the time. Finally, I'll just wrap up real quickly. We had oral arguments earlier this month in a case challenging property forfeitures. We have this system in Massachusetts where if the police seize your guns for any reason, they don't have to store them. They can give them to an extortionist. I mean, a bonded warehouse. And that bonded warehouse can take your guns and sell them and keep the money unless you pay the storage fees, okay? So right now, the First Circuit is trying to decide if they're a state actor or not. And if they're a state actor, they're subject to the same type of liabilities as police departments and any other government entity. We think that went fairly well, but we'll see. Our judiciary is not that friendly. The other case I want to highlight real quickly is our challenge to the Attorney General's safe handgun regulations, or specifically how she interprets them. She interprets them such that no dealer in Massachusetts can legally sell a new Glock handgun to a resident of Massachusetts. Who in here owns a Glock handgun? Oh yeah, you guys break my heart. And this is just a wonky interpretation. The Attorney General says that they don't have an effective load chamber indicator, but won't say why. So we filed that brief a week ago in the First Circuit Court of Appeals, and we're very proud to be participating in that case with the Second Amendment Foundation. They've been great backers of that case through some very trying times, and we're looking forward to success. Now, we have 5 other cases in federal court. 3 other cases, including those, more on the way. I wish I could bore you all day long with them, but remember, when the legislature and the executive branch do not do their job, the courts are there frequently to help us. Our state courts are unpredictable and don't even apply state law, but the federal judiciary is starting to work in our advantage. And that'll be our backstop. We always have to remember that that's out there. Thank you very much for your attention, and enjoy the rest of the conference.